Welcome to tonight's session. So we're here with BDO, running an application clinic with Pathway CTM, working together to get information across to students about BDO, the application process, how to be successful in it. Thank you all of you for coming this evening. I've put a hello in the chat box. So if you are live, stick a hello in the chat box, make sure you find it and you can see what's going on. The QR code on the front page that I'm showing you here will take you to all of our other events that we do. And it will take you to the website where the events are. And if you were to go to the opportunities page, you will see the BDO opportunities as well, what they have available and what you need to apply to those opportunities. But this evening, like I said, it's an application clinic. To communicate with us, you can use the chat box. You can use the Q&A box. You can raise your hand if you want to come off microphone and speak. I know that's not comfortable for everybody, but with the chat box, as we go along, like I said, I've put a hello in there already. So I want to see people give me a hello back. So I know you found the chat box and you can use it. As we go along, we may ask you some questions ad hoc so you can put the answers in. The Q&A box is going to be more specifically so that when you've got questions, and there will be question and answer session, but as you've got questions as you go along, you can put them in the Q&A box. And when the right time for us to answer them is there, we will answer them, but at least you've got it down and you won't forget it and we can get to it. So use those functions available to you. Now, I'm Max, I'm from Pathway CTM. So I'm here on behalf of Pathway CTM. I'm the head of student support and events. What does that actually mean? It means that I run events like this with my team, put them together, we run them, we host them, and we invite companies in. So BDO is here tonight. And when you look at it and you see the information and you may have already applied, you might be through the process, you might be looking at applying and thinking, I want a bit more information, and that's why you're here tonight. My student support side comes in after that, where you get in touch with me and say, okay, I want to apply, but just need somebody to check my CV, or if I got the right information in there, or you want to practice interview stuff, or you need to practice your assessment center stuff because maybe you've never done one before. And I always say, I can't make you pass these things. That's not my job. My job is to prepare you so that you can give the best of yourself going forward. Okay, so that's the role I do. Once you see those, I do a drop-in session every Wednesday, 4:30 till 5:30, where you can come and ask questions, totally off agenda, and it's all about you guys. However, I've said it about 3 times already. We are with BDO tonight, and we've got a team of people who have come to present and get information across to you. And I'm going to hand over to the first person, and that's Eagle. So Eagle, good evening. Welcome to tonight's session. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much, Max. Thank you very much for everyone attending. It's great to see you're interested in potentially pursuing a career with us. I'm joined today by 3 of my colleagues. So Jade, who works in the early careers team with me, is here to sort of help me sort of demystify the application process and let you know a little bit more about what we do. And then we've got Danny and Morgan here as well, who are both working in different audit teams. Danny in Ipswich and Morgan in Gatwick, who can tell a little bit more about what it is actually like being a school leaver apprentice. You know, what the day-to-day is like, what they get up to. So we'll start with giving a brief introduction to who we are as a firm and what we do. And over to you, Jade.
Perfect, thank you. Hi everybody. As Eagle said, my name is Jade. I'm one of the resourcing advisors here at BDO. So first off, as you can see a little bit about us. So we're part of an $11.8 billion organisation. We operate in 164 countries, and we have 1,600 offices around the world, and we look after 95,400 staff. Again, roundabout, that obviously changes all the time. So we are quite a big organisation. And if we just go on to the next slide, Max. So here you can see that we are operating with 6,000 people in the UK. So there's 18 offices and 350 partners there to support you as well. So on the little map there, you can see all of our offices. We have lots down south, and then in the Midlands as well, and a couple up there in Scotland. We are one of the UK's largest accountancy and business advisory firms. So we provide specialist audit, assurance, tax and advisory services. So that's sort of a little bit about us, and I will pass you back over to Eagle.
Thank you very much, Jade. So that's a little bit more about us, and I wanted to sort of give you an appreciation of how we recruit as well. So we recruit trainees through two routes. Today, obviously, we are here to speak to you about the School Leaver Programme, but it's quite nice to see them both sort of next to each other. So obviously we recruit trainees through the graduate programme, which is for those who decide to get to university. It's a 3-year programme. You get a professional qualification, you get level 7 apprenticeship, which is equivalent to master's degree. And then once you finish that, you're qualified, you get promoted, you continue working with us, developing that way. Or if you would like to just get stuck and get the sort of experience, get the qualification done sooner, and you know what you want to do, you can choose the School Leaver Apprenticeship Programme. So instead of doing it over 3 years like grads do, you do the apprenticeship over 4 years. So after 4 years, you get the same qualifications. So for our audit teams, it's primarily ACA. You might have heard of that. We do CTA as well in tax and some other smaller niche qualifications as well. You get a level 7 apprenticeship again. So again, sort of equivalent to spending 4 years at university, and then you get that work experience that comes with that, and you get to continue your development through. In terms of the requirements, they are very similar. So we look for at least a 4 in maths and English GCSE, and 3 A levels at sort of C grade or better. We do accept equivalent. So if you do BTECs or anything like that, that's fine. Or, you know, if you've gone to school abroad like I have, then that's absolutely fine as well. The only difference between the two programs is that obviously the grads would require sort of a 2-2 at university, which obviously if you're applying for the School Leaver Programme, you wouldn't have gone to uni, or you haven't finished at least, so you wouldn't have that, right? So the other thing to mention when we're looking at it is that our trainees are treated the same. So when you start, you continue developing. It doesn't really matter whether you've gone to uni or not. You're getting the same development opportunities, and actually some of our most senior partners went the School Leaver route themselves. Our managing partner, Paul Eagland, for example, he started that School Leaver route. So it's an excellent way to sort of hit the ground running, get your qualifications in soon, and then just continue that development into sort of being manager, director, and partner, if that's what you're looking for. So if we go to the next slide, the other thing we offer for people who are in sort of year 11 and 12 in school who meet certain social mobility criteria is the Explore BDO programme. So it's a virtual insight week, which means that you apply for it to get a better understanding of who we are as a firm. You get to network with some senior people within the company, hear what our different streams and teams do. And then if you like what you're hearing and you do well throughout, you can be fast tracked onto sort of opportunities the following year with us. And it's a great way if you are in one of those 2-year groups and you're looking to get that sort of foot in the door and get an appreciation of what a firm like BDO get up to. It's a great way to sort of get that insight over the summer. So you, if you were to join as a trainee, obviously it's a lot of hard work studying for your qualification and working at the same time. I'm sure Dan and Morgan can tell us more about that later. But it's also important to keep in mind the level of support and help that you would get with us. So we obviously have professional tutors to teach you the qualifications, but we also have mentors and buddies internally that you can work with. A buddy is normally someone who's a year or 2 ahead of you. So they've been there, done that, you know, they passed the exams, they can tell you a little bit more about that. You know, how did they do it? How did they manage that with the workload? How do you speak to people manager about sort of making sure you're not overloaded with work when you're supposed to be studying for your exams? And obviously the people manager is there to help you. Our tagline is helping you succeed. It's what we talk about when we speak to clients, but I think it's even more important when we speak to you know, potential trainees or people within the company already. What we want to do is give you the opportunity to really fulfill your potential and reach the career goals that you've got. So it's all about sort of supporting you in any way that you need, if that's sort of exams or if you're just looking for someone to have a chat with and sort of go, well, you know, oh, this is, you know, this is difficult. How do I do it? people are there to help you out. And I think that's probably the one thing that I find really, really good about them. So the application process, just sort of covering that off as well. It's a 3-step process. So online application form, very basic. We just ask for your name, contact details, as well as sort of what your qualifications are. So do you meet our academic criteria? Once that's done, you will get the link to do our HyperY online test, which is 45 minutes. It's combined sort of interactive assessment and video interview. And what we're looking for there is obviously your the way you like to work, as well as sort of understanding a little bit more about your competencies as well. If you do well at that, you're then through and you can be shortlisted for a virtual assessment centre, which is where you get to meet the team for the first time. So if you applied for audit in Gatwick, for example, that's when you get to meet Ollie or Rebecca or one of the other assessors, really speak to them about their sort of career journeys with us, get to meet a partner or two and see, you know, is this the right thing for you? Is this the right firm? Is this the right team? And then if you do well at the virtual assessment centre, there's then the offer. So 3-step process, very quick and straightforward. We move to the next one. So what we look for in our trainees is 6 competencies. So these are the same that the ones that we work with our trainees on, and every single BDO employee will be sort of measuring their performance against these. So when I'm speaking to my manager, these are the ones I'm focusing on. Same for Jade, same for Danny and Morgan, and the same for, as I mentioned him earlier, Paul, our managing partner. So what we look for is innovation and change, business thinking, decision making, developing self and others, communication and collaboration. What you might see here is that we're not really looking for someone who's got loads of accounting knowledge. We can teach you that. What we are looking for is those soft skills and those sort of attitudes towards work that are really important to us. We're looking for people who like working in teams, who are good at communicating with clients or with their team, and who can work with others to just really help them sort of evolve their skill sets as well. And it's really important to us that you keep in mind that sort of innovative spirit as well, sort of looking for ways to solve problems and being open to those challenges as well.
I'm going to do is I'm going to say briefly to students, those of you that are on the session, when you look at what BDO is looking for, it's really important to take in what it is they're asking for. And what you want to be doing is preparing yourself for when you go towards interview and assessment centre to remember what are they looking for and how am I going to demonstrate these things when I'm asked. So you prepare it beforehand, so it's not just done on the fly when you're in the interview or in the assessment centre. Prepare yourselves. They've given you the information, what they're looking for. You can work with me and use our resources to then prep yourself, get those examples ready, those real life examples you've got that are valid, so that it gives you a better chance of being successful as you go through the processes.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Max. So the assessment process, so the testing itself, is split in 2, right? So the HyperY test is Hypo stands for high potential. So it's essentially about measuring your potential and seeing, you know, what kind of skill sets do you already have. So it's a mixture of sort of numerical intellect, verbal intellect, and behavioral questions. What we want to see is that you can solve problems. So numerical, obviously maths, GCSE maths. It's not super complex mathematics we're looking for. It's about having that accuracy and being comfortable working with numbers. And then trying to understand how you behave in certain situations at work. It's not time. We're not looking to sort of sit there with a stopwatch and make sure you're doing all of the answers within certain times. It's all about you working through it accurately, as well as trying to be as efficient as possible. The timing is only sort of being recorded on the video interview part. So the video interview is 4 questions, real life scenarios we're looking for here. So you get a video recording asking you a question, and then you're recording yourself answering that. So what we're looking for is understanding what you've done before, seeing how you can use those real life scenarios to bring the competencies to life. So try and sort of explain what you've done, elaborate on your experiences, and use that to sort of get across those competencies. It's also your first opportunity to really impress us when it comes to your BDO knowledge. So when you're doing your research for the video interview, you know, be really clear with yourself. Why am I applying to BDO? Why am I applying for audit? What is it about PSA, tax, what have you? What is it that really attracts me to this? And then be able to sort of sit down, maybe with a friend, have that conversation with them. Because if you're able to sit down, for example, on a Zoom call, right now, if I was telling Max, these are the reasons I want to join BDO, X, Y, Z. This is why I'm specifically looking at this team. You will then be able to then sit down, do the video interview, take all of your notes, put them far away, and just give that authentic response. Any notes you might have, just put them away. It doesn't help. It will come across as inauthentic and stilted. So try and sort of internalize that. And as soon as you know how to answer the why do you want to join BDO, as soon as you know how to answer what do you know about audit and why do you want to do it, that's when you're ready to do the video interview. If we move on to the next one. So I've already given you some top tips there, but just sort of to rehash some of them. So when you are doing your test, when you're due to do it, you've got practice test first to complete that. We send it at the same time as the real deal. It might not necessarily tell you exactly what the questions are, but it will give you an understanding of what the format's like, so you can get you comfortable working through it in that way. Check your connection. Obviously, the last thing you want to do is sort of glitch out halfway through and lose your Wi-Fi. It does happen, of course, but try and do what you can to minimize that risk. Ensure you have the time to focus and space to focus. So any housemates you might have, mum, dad, sort of let them know you're doing it and not to interrupt you. Put the cat outside of your bedroom door. You don't want to sort of have them walking over your keyboard. It does happen. And then obviously anything sort of tea or water or anything like that might be good to have it, but don't sort of knock it over. Believe me, I've been there. Review the instructions in detail. Clearly understand what we're asking. We're not looking to trick you, but it's important that you're reading everything clearly and making sure you understand what we are asking you, because it's quite easy to read it and then answer the question you want to have seen on the screen, not actually the one we've asked you. So I think those are some of the top tips. I'm sure we can give you some a little bit later as well. But if we move on to the next one, Matt.
I will say, just with that, look, BDO have been good enough to share those top tips. And the reason why they share them, and I say this to students all the time, when you're going through this process, listen to what Igor said about those things. And it's not because if one of those things happens that it goes against you. But what it does is it takes your focus away from your interview and your video and what you're presenting, and it means your mind is now on something else, so you're not giving the best of yourself. It's like that preparation work. You prepare beforehand, you have everything set in place, and then you can focus 100% on the interview and give the best of yourself. Then you can worry less about those other things distracting you, because trust me, I've seen it. We don't hold it against you, but it will take the distractions to elsewhere, and you will struggle. So take them into consideration and listen to the advice. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt. Going back to sort of the hyperwrite part of it, and just sort of diving into a little bit into what I mean when I say numerical and verbal and behavioral. So those words might not mean much to you. It's a very HR way of seeing things, but essentially what they mean is that we're assessing certain parts of your intelligence, right? So numerical intellect, it's all about GCSE maths, percentages, ratios. Have a calculator ready, pen and paper. If you can, I would always recommend using an actual real life calculator, not your phone. Again, because if you use your phone, there are distractions on there. If you get notifications coming through, it can throw you off. It might just be 1 point that you lose on it because you lose that attention for half a second, but people do lose out by 1 point. So just anything you can do to maximize your chances. Identify the information you need to answer the question and then ignore everything else. So we might throw data at you that's not relevant. So it's up to you to then sort of block that out and just focus on what you need. The way I like to see that is when you're learning to drive and you come to a roundabout, there's lots of cars and it's easy to sort of feel overwhelmed by it. And what you need to do to sort of learn how to drive a roundabout is focus on the cars that can actually have an impact on the way you're driving. So just block out everything else and focus on what you can. And then it's double check your answers. Obviously, we're not timing it. So the last thing you want to do is sort of get something wrong just because you're rushing through it. Verbal intellect as well, similarly to the numbers, just read it, understand what we're asking, and be careful when you're answering it. Take your time to review everything and don't make assumptions. So the verbal intellect, we're only asking questions based on the information provided to you. You might have some other information you think is relevant, but that can throw you off. So it's all about just understanding what information is it I'm actually needing to review here, and how can I make sure I'm focusing on that. And then the behavioral side of things, so review our values, know what they are and what they mean, and then obviously try and answer the questions in a way that you would in a professional setting. So if it was someone from BDO asking you the question, how would you answer it? And just to keep that in mind when you're recording your answers as well. So a video interview response that is quite common, not just with BDO, is why would you like to join BDO? And I picked that out earlier as well. And just keep that in mind, write it down if you want to have a practice. Trying to think about, you can put other firms in there, but it's all about trying to think about what is it that makes this firm in particular stand out to you. A poor response to the why would you like to join BDO is what I want to work for a large international accountancy firm, which is true. We are. Jade's showed you that already, but there's quite a few others who work sort of globally, who are large accounting firms. So what is it about BDO that make us stand out in that? It might be very personal to you. You might have a completely different reason for wanting to join to the one I had, to the one Morgan gave in his partner interview, and one that Danny told the team when he was interviewing for PSA. But you want to make sure it's authentic, that it's true, and that you can get it across as well. We move to the next one, Matt. So just some top tips. Look at the camera. If you look into the camera, you're simulating eye contact. So by doing that, you can really sort of get your point across. And that obviously means that any notes or anything like that that you might have, put them far away, because the more you look down like this, the more disinterested you look and the less authentic you come across. Answer the question, as I said, not the question you wanted to have, but the one that's actually in front of you. Use the STAR technique as well. I'm sure Max can run you through what that is, but it's essentially a way to sort of format your answer in such a way that you get it across, that it's clear, and you remember to use those all important examples as well. And then obviously going back to it, make sure you know why you want to join the firm and why you want to join that team in particular. So handing over to Jade for the Virtual Assessment Centre.
Thank you, Eagle. So I'm going to take some time now just to talk you through our Virtual Assessment Centre and what you can expect if you attend. So I will talk you through these aspects in more detail in a moment, but in short, you'll have a welcome, an introduction with someone like myself or Eagle, one of our EIC resourcing team. You'll have a group exercise an interview, a written exercise, and a presentation and SWOT analysis. So if we just pop along to the next slide. Okay, so just some general hints and tips for a virtual assessment centre. So I know we keep repeating it, but do your research on BDO and the role. It is so, so important. You can do a super job at everything else, but if you can't tell us why you want to join us, why you want to join this team, lots of the times your interview is with a partner or a director. They may have been with the business for years and years and years. They're really passionate and they've worked really hard to get to where they have in their career. So they really want to see that passion. As Eagle said before, we can teach you lots of things, but we can't teach you to want to study the qualification and to want to join us. So that's really important. In the group exercise, work together as a group. I would say your competition is yourself. Okay, so you won't necessarily know how many roles we have available. It's really, really important that you work together as a group and don't view the other candidates as sort of your competition. You obviously want to do the best you can do, but it's important that you don't sort of talk over anybody or completely bulldoze the activity. It's a sort of collaboration and sort of it's that type of a task. Dress as you would for a face-to-face interview. You don't have to be suited and booted. We're not asking you for, really, really formal dress code, but just dress sort of so you feel comfortable, and then probably a little bit smarter than your day-to-day. So just a shirt is absolutely fine. Anything that you feel comfortable in, but you don't have to sort of wear a tie or get all dressed up, but just obviously don't attend in your pajamas or anything like that. When you're looking at your presentation, make sure you've covered all of the objectives. So the prep time for your presentation, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. It is all timed, so it's really important that when you first get the instructions, you sort of have a scan through them and make sure you leave enough time to do everything that you need to do within that time frame to ensure that you're answering all of the questions. Throughout the day, make sure your spelling and grammar is correct. We often sort of make typos when we're rushing, especially for the written exercise. So just make sure you are reading and reviewing everything that you're doing before you're pressing submit, because once it's gone, you can't take it back again. And if we give you, for instance, for the written exercise, 20 minutes to do the task, make sure you are taking your 20 minutes and really reviewing it before you submit it. And lastly, but most importantly, be yourself. So we really want to get to know the real you. It's important that you're sort of displaying positive body language, you're acting sort of interested, you're displaying active listening skills throughout the day, and just making sure you're really interacting with us and really giving us some of your personality as well. Okay, so if we go on to the next slide, please, Matt. Great. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about each of the individual aspects of the assessment centre. So the group exercise, you have already met the sort of candidates that you're taking part in the group exercise with during the welcome and the introduction. So you'd have already said hello to everybody. So when you join that call, you know exactly who's going to be on it. And it's usually facilitated by myself or Eagle or a member of our team. So we'll be there as a friendly face as well. So the idea is to work together as a group. It's really important that you take your own notes as well. So we will always remind you on the day, but take some notes while you're doing the exercise. Keep an eye on the time. So it's quite common in a group exercise for somebody to put their hand up and say, I'll be timekeeper, but you wouldn't believe the amount of times that timekeeper doesn't do the timekeeping. So even if you haven't nominated yourself, do keep an eye on the time. If you have nominated yourself, do remind the group of the time, okay? So it's not good enough to say, I'll keep an eye on the time, and then after 50 minutes say time's up. Your role is to sort of keep reminding the group, making sure the conversation moves along. So that's something to watch. Use stats and facts from the brief. So just make sure you're pulling in all of that information that we're giving you. That's really, really important that you use what we've given you in your preparation time. And again, be yourself. And as I said before, you are your own competition in these things. It's really, really important that you don't bulldoze the activity, but it's also very, very important that you take part and you contribute. If you sit there and don't say anything, we cannot assess you. So it's really important that you do, if you are sort of a little bit more of an introvert and group exercises sort of aren't your forte, it's really important that you do try to sort of muscle your way in and take part. A lot of the time other candidates will try to bring you in, but you must respond to that if you're a little bit shy, and take part, because if you go through the 50-minute exercise and don't say anything, then we cannot score you. Okay, so next slide.
The advice that is being given here is really important to be listened to, and students that are here, this advice is coming from people who do these on a regular basis. That be yourself has been mentioned twice, so really do be yourself. And that prep work you do beforehand and the research about the company, you know why you want to apply to BDO, you know why it attracts you, so tell them the real reason why you're attracted to BDO. Don't tell them what you think they want to hear. Jade, I'm actually going to ask you a question. When you do these and you see people doing what they think you want to see and telling you what they think you want to hear, how well does it normally go when they do that?
The thing is, it's not just people telling us what they think we want to hear. It's more often than not, it's a pre-prepared response, which often doesn't give us the response to the question that we're actually asking. And it sort of shows that you're reading off a piece of paper or something as well. So it's really important that you sort of try and speak with passion. And it can even be something, you know, you could read our culture report, for instance, that's published. So you can read that and say, look, I've had a look at your values and your culture, and they really align with, you know, this that I'm doing in my day-to-day life. And it's making that match between, you know, your values and our values, you know, and things like that. And it doesn't have to be, you know, this outstanding, amazing reason for wanting to join. It just has to be genuine, you know, and we can often tell when it's just sort of a pre-prepared answer, and that's not what the partners want. They're all human. They want to know why you want to join, how sort of you're going to fit into their team. You know, even if you're sort of really interested in some charity work that BDO are involved in, or, you know, you've spoken to a current trainee. Sometimes we have candidates who reach out on LinkedIn to people like Morgan and Danny and sort of say hello, and, you know, just say, oh, what is it that you like about BDO? And that just shows that you're being prepared and you're having a look into everything. You know, we have various events as well online. There's lots of events that we do that you can join and say, oh, I attended this on, I don't know, International Women's Day and I thought it was fantastic. And there's lots that you can say for that. It doesn't need to be sort of facts and figures about how large the business is and all of that stuff, because that doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Thank you, Jane.
So let's talk about the written exercise. So this is a really short exercise during the assessment centre. It's only 20 minutes. So this is why, as I said earlier, just make sure you're reading the brief and you're giving yourself time to cover everything. And it's really important with the written exercise that you're making sure your spelling and grammar is correct. You know, please do use the full time allowed. Sometimes, just a little tip a teacher told me actually back at school was, if you're checking your spelling, read it backwards. So read your written exercise backwards, because then you're more likely to spot spelling errors. If you read something forwards, your eyes will skim over any errors because they think that they see what should be there and not what you've actually typed. So if you do have time, that's just a little tip. With the written exercise as well, just make sure you're looking at how you're structuring your piece of writing and the type of language that you're using. Obviously, we're a professional firm. Just think of sort of any language that you would use sort of day to day at work, rather than, you know, if you're talking, you know, if you're texting your friends or something like that. Okay, so next slide. So the presentation and SWOT analysis. So you are allocated time to prepare this during the assessment centre day. Most candidates produce some kind of PowerPoint presentation, as it's really good to have something visually for the assessor to look at, and it also helps you sort of structure your presentation, because you will be speaking for about 10 to 15 minutes. It sounds like a long time, but it flies by when you're actually presenting. Again, make sure your spelling and grammar is correct. Make sure you cover all of the objectives and everything that you're being asked. Make sure you use your prep time effectively, and that also when you're presenting back, you keep an eye on the time, just to make sure you're not flying through your presentation, or that you're not going so slowly that you're not going to have time for questions and things at the end. Sort of timekeeping and using your time effectively runs throughout the day. And again, as we've said a million times, researching BDO and practicing what a SWOT analysis is really important. So before you attend an assessment centre, you always have a pre-assessment centre call with myself or Eagle or one of our colleagues, and we will talk you through everything to expect, a bit like this, and you'll sort of make notes, and then you're able to go away and practice before the day. So that's the presentation. If we move on. Interview. So as I mentioned earlier, this is usually with a senior member of the team, so they're extremely passionate about what they do. Okay, it's usually about 45 minutes. It's a two-part interview, and we look at your motivation. So motivation means everything that we've been talking about, your passion for wanting to join. You know, make sure you've researched the qualification and the apprenticeship you'll be studying. So we're looking at your motivation and also identifying sort of your strengths. So we'll be asking you some competency-based questions, some strengths-based questions in there as well. There's lots and lots of research you can do online looking at frequently asked competency and strengths-based questions, again using the STAR method for those answers. So it's really important that you do your research and you come well prepared, not so prepared that you're reading off a script, because in that way you won't be interacting with the assessor sitting in front of you. You'll be looking down. Notes do distract quite a lot, so you can maybe have some post-it notes, have some things around that you definitely want to say if that makes you feel more comfortable having them there, but quite often it turns into more sort of a conversation, and you'll find that you don't need them. Really make sure you're listening to the question that's being asked and not what you think is being asked. Okay, so this happens a lot, especially when we're under pressure and we might be feeling a little bit stressed. You can always ask the assessor just to repeat the question so that you've really understood what they're looking for. Just looking here, questions will cover things that you've done in the past. So we don't expect you when you come, you know, for interview to have professional firm work experience. Again, that's not what we're looking for. So you can use any types of scenarios. So you can use projects you've done at school, if you've had a part-time job, if you're part of a sports team, you know, anything at all. And when we're looking for things like innovation and change, we're not looking again for somebody to sort of reinvent the wheel. We're looking for instance, you might have had a paper round and you might have changed the route to save yourself 10 minutes to deliver people's papers more quickly. You know, that's innovative, that's changing something. We don't need you to have, you know, really complicated examples. We need you to understand the question, be able to give us your response, sticking with that sort of STAR method of situation, task, action, and making sure you're closing it off with the result. So, you know, it's just having a think about some things that you do in your day-to-day. You might play in a band and you've run a concert for charity and you've sold some tickets, and how did you do that and how much money did you make? And you know, it's that type of thing. So I'm sure you've all got, you know, situations in your day-to-day that you can use for these questions. They don't all have to be about work experience that you might have had. And then if we move on, so this is an interview question example. So is it better to plan everything out before you start, or start what you can as you go along? So a good answer would be to include which approach is better and explain this using evidence. So these are your examples and your scenarios. Highlight what could go wrong if that approach isn't taken, and explain why some situations may require taking the other approach. With something like this, we're not looking for, you know, there's no right or wrong answer. We're just looking for how you explain yourself and saying, you know, I would do it this way this time, but if, you know, if I couldn't, or if this were to happen, this is why we might do something another way. So it's just making sure you're giving the assessor all of that depth and detail. Go on to the next slide. There we go. That's it. Rattle through those super quickly. So now we have lots of time for questions.
I've got lots of time for questions, and we've got other people to meet as well. And I want so students to think about the information that's being put across and do ask questions, because especially if you are in the middle of the application process or in the middle of the interview process, you're in the right session to be able to ask questions and get things that you need clarified. And also, it was mentioned in the presentation, we think about when you go through those processes, and then you'd be able to use this as an example, because in a short while, we're going to meet Morgan and Danny, and you could potentially use that in your answers, in your interviews, to be able to say, well, I've been to a session, I've met Morgan, I heard from him, or I listened to what Eagle and Jade said, and this is why also I'm inspired to join this company. Use these resources. So think about questions that you've got. These people are in front of you now, and they will give as much information as you want, but ask the questions and don't be afraid. And then you can use it to prepare yourself for those interviews, for those assessment centers. And there's a lot of good information in there as well. Think about reading the tasks when you're in the assessment centers, making sure that you understand everything. You're not in a competition. Jade said it, you're not in a competition. So don't worry about competing against other people. Work together, okay? Use those to advantage, and you'll be more calm and you'll be more prepared. Nobody's ever not nervous in an assessment center or in an interview. That's normal, right? We're all nervous. But there's nervous, and then there's unprepared and not having a clue what's going on. So think about those things. So what questions do we have? And also, I'm going to jump the gun. We've got Danny and Morgan. Eagle, you were probably going to do this, but are we ready to meet them?
Yeah, sure. Should I go ahead? I'll introduce myself first then.
Absolutely, go for it.
My name's Danny. I work for the Ipswich office, which is in Ipswich. If you don't know where Ipswich is in Essex, if you don't know where Ipswich is, sorry. And I'm part of the public sector assurance team. So essentially, I'll be working on auditing public sector entities, and that consists of councils, police and fire authorities, NHS bodies, and other sort of public sector organisations. I've been with BDO for just coming up to 3 years now. I think it's about 2.5 years I've been at BDO currently. Yeah, and as you all know, I've been through the school leaver route, so I know sort of the ins and outs of the interview process and sort of what you can expect in your first few years at BDO.
Fantastic, brilliant. And Morgan, let's meet you. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm Morgan. I've been at BDO for just over 6 months now, so I joined in September on the school leaver program. To be honest, at first I wasn't. My goal wasn't to do an apprenticeship. At first, I wanted to take accounting at university, but I was able to take some time out during lockdown. I deferred my year, took some time out to think about things, did a little bit of research, and I realised that the apprenticeship was so much more suited to me. Just because you're going towards something that you want to do, and you're getting a qualification at the end of it. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic, that's brilliant. It's good to have the two of you on as well. Different parts of the country. One's been slightly longer, one's newer, but still, I'm going to assume that you've both been through this application process. Then you've done this and you've been to the assessment centres. Morgan, not so long ago. Danny, a couple of years ago. Hopefully, you still remember it. So you can give us advice. So again, students, make sure those questions come in for them because they've been through it. I will ask the both of you, before you went through those processes, had you done a lot of interviews? Had you applied to other places? Was it new? Did you find it a bit difficult to prepare for? And what kind of things would you suggest that students think about before they get into these stages? And Danny, if you want to go first, please.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I'd applied for a couple of others. So I know I wanted to get into accounting. So I'd applied to a couple of other firms. I'd had, at the current time when sort of BDO invited me to the assessment, I'd had one other interview with another firm. It was a similar sort of process really, but BDO was a bit different in that there was sort of the initial sort of virtual screening, and then you was invited along to assessment day. In terms of preparation for the interview, I feel as though I just want to reiterate what Jade and Eagle have said, whereas sort of just preparing for the interview itself sort of put me in a really good place when it came to actually sort of attending. So yeah, what I did a lot of research sort of in accounting in general, because to be honest, I didn't have any knowledge of what accounting was just before my sort of application. So I did a bit of research into what the role would involve. And And then I also had a little bit of a look on BDO's values, and also just the stream. So I was applying for the public sector stream, as I mentioned. So I had a little sort of research as to what sort of clients that might entail, and sort of what I'll be doing on a day-to-day basis. So that sort of research initially sort of put me in a good place for when I did attend the interview. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Morgan?
Yeah, so I realized quite quickly that I wanted to go into accounting. Like I said, it was between university and the apprenticeship, and I felt like the apprenticeship was a lot more suited to me and how I work and operate. So yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. But I did have a few interviews as well before. I'm not sure if I can name the other companies, but yeah, if you work at BDO, you would know who those other companies are. But to be honest, I ended up choosing between one company and another company, and they're quite similar on the face of it. But once you do a bit of research about BDO, you might find things that you like. So I think Jade mentioned earlier, there was a thing about the culture report, and I actually did look into that just before joining, and I thought that was like a real like pushing factor for me. And also the emphasis on collaboration. I'm sure you've heard that phrase already in the call. But the big thing about collaboration, when during work, during revising, I just thought that was a really important thing for me. So yeah, and in terms of preparing for interviews, I think I did prepare, but I think I did prior research on the company, and because it was kind of natural, I didn't really get a pre-practiced answer to the questions. I kind of just let it flow out naturally during the interview, and I felt like that helped a lot better. Even if it's just maybe just relating, like explaining why you're interested in accounting, and explaining why you're interested in BDO, and kind of linking the two and sort of relating it back to maybe your personal life, maybe. So yeah.
And that's really important to say as well, Morgan, because obviously it was mentioned a few times about being yourself, and you found that genuine reason why BDO resonated with you, and you brought that to the interview. And as you've just said yourself, it came out naturally. And that is the kind of thing that will help you be more successful, because it does come out naturally. It's not pre-scripted, and you're not saying something that you think the brand wants to hear. It's your genuine reason, and that's what's important. But then I'm going to ask you as well, you said as well that you realized the apprenticeship was more for you. What made you realize that? Why makes it more for you? Because I do get a lot of students that ask me, is university better, is apprenticeship better? And I always try and say that it's down to they're both as good as each other. It's down to the individual. What was your case?
Well, I actually deferred my year at uni, so I was originally planning on going to uni, and it was during lockdown, so I had a lot of time to think about what I really wanted to do. Because I feel like at the age of 18, just after college, your mind's more on A levels and getting all your qualifications there, rather than actually like evaluating what's best for you. Because I feel like sometimes uni, it's not the easy route, but it's right in front of you, So I was quite lucky, so I had a bit of time off to think about it. I actually messaged someone on LinkedIn. They weren't at BDO, they were in an accounting role already, and they went through the audit stream. So that was quite helpful. And I've always been someone that likes to, I like learning about things through studying and books, but I always find that when I'm doing it as well, I find that it just clicks a lot better for me as well. And also I did feel like I was ready for work as well. So that's why this apprenticeship, because it comes with these what is it called, the ACCA. I'm not sure if everyone in this call is looking at the ACCA, but the one I did was the ACCA. So it's a number of exams that you do, and you get a qualification, the Chartered Accountant qualification. So to hear that I can do that whilst working and gaining experience, it was a no-brainer,
That's it, brilliant. And what about yourself, Danny?
Similarly to Morgan, I just wanted to get back into the working world, to be honest. So I took a really sort of non-traditional route into the apprenticeship. So I left school after my GCSEs and started work as an estate agent. And whilst I did enjoy working itself, I didn't really find that a estate agency was for me. So I went back to sixth form. I got my A levels, and then after sixth form, I was sort of in the almost like a habit of working in the working environment. I was keen to get back into working, to be honest. I didn't want to go along and study for 3 years at university. So I was really keen to almost just get back into working. So the apprenticeship route sort of gives you it's the ideal match of the two. You've got the time to study and get a qualification which is recognised, but also work and earn a wage. Another important factor for me was just the opportunity to gain experience on the job. I'm not sure about yourselves, but in my opinion, if I was an employer, I would much prefer to sort of employ a candidate that had been working in accounting for 3 years, rather than someone that had been studying the theory of accounting for 3 years at university. So that was sort of one of the main attracting factors for me, was just, the on-the-job experience that you get as an apprentice. And of course, it's good to avoid the uni fees as well. They're pretty high at the minute, so that was another little factor.
And I suppose being accountants and around numbers, you'll understand that it's not good to have those debts around you, which is great. Brilliant. That's lots of good information. And I hope that students are on this call and are hearing this. You can see that everybody has different stories and different reasons, and it has to resonate with you, but you can see that the possibilities are there and that you can get there, find your own, do the research, and come along. But then Igor, Jade, we've got a couple of questions that have come through for you guys as well, I suppose, from a BDO point of view. I know I've totally taken over the Q&A session. I apologize for that, but somebody has asked, so Elle has asked about, is there a level of mobility to move around different teams working in different sectors at BDO? Is that something that you can do during the apprenticeship, or is it like you're in that team and then you study that and qualify and then you can move around?
Good question. It depends on what you mean by moving, right? So we have some teams that work very broad. So obviously Danny in PSA is sort of a bit of a specialist and an expert in that area. Whereas the sort of southeast team that Morgan is part of, which sit across Gatwick and Guildford, they work very broad. So you have the business assurance of working with companies who might be smaller ones, might be bigger ones. You have not-for-profit, so charity work, and you can also get involved in sort of pensions audits as well. So it's a very broad area of expertise in that team. You obviously have partners who are specialists, who are sort of at the top of the range in what they do. But as a trainee, you have that mobility within that team to sort of speak to one of the managers and go, you know what, I want to work with you on this a little bit. Can I just get that experience? And you have those 4 years to sort of figure out where you want to go with it. Which is really good, because obviously if you then want to become an expert and you then in a few years sit down with a client who then goes, well, I would like to speak to someone who knows this. Well, actually I do, or I work closely with someone who do. So that's obviously one thing. The other thing is that obviously the question might be coming from what I don't actually know what I want to do in 20 years. So am I pigeonholing myself? Not necessarily. The accounting apprenticeships, especially within audit, they give you very good grounding in business and finance in general. So they're a very good way to start to understand businesses and companies, whether that means sort of continuing an audit, which is obviously one of the things on offer, or whether you're then looking to sort of specialize into a slightly different team. You can do that internally. The ACA is internationally recognized as well. So we have people who sort of train with us for 4 years and do secondment. So you can go to Canada, you can go to Australia. Those opportunities are there as well. So you can move to other teams internally. You can try your hand at sort of other countries as well if you want. The one thing to keep in mind there is that during the interview, if you sit down with a partner who goes, well, why do you want to do audit? And you start with, well, actually, I'm probably going to go elsewhere in a few years. That's not going to go down well. It gives you the options, but it's important that you will enjoy the day-to-day of that audit and trainee role. And if you're telling your partner that you're interviewing already with a foot out the door, you're not gonna come across as well as you probably want to.
wise advice. And it is worth noting that what we want to open students' minds up to is that the choice you make now is not it for the rest of your life. What it is it sets you on a journey and a possibility. And when you join an organization like BDO, obviously you concentrate on, and as Igor just said, you concentrate on what you originally signed up for. But further down the line, as the size of an organization, there will be other pathways that are put in front of you because of your experience, because of your application, because of what you've done and what you've seen. And you'll see other things. And later on, once you're qualified, you'll be able to go, oh, actually, that's something I might want to look at. And I'm sure that BDO would support you through these steps because of the size of the organization and what they do. So with that, there are a couple of other questions as well for you, Igor, and Jay too. When you look at the roles, because I know that there's quite a few roles that you have at BDO, and somebody's asked, do you offer a degree apprenticeship in accounting? Do we want to just cover off that, how many different roles you have and what they look like? I know that's a bit of a broad question, but.
Yeah. We have, I mean, how many different opportunities and everything that we have? I mean, it's hard to put a number on it. We've got a lot of different opportunities within audit, business services outsourcing, tax advisory. I'm sure you've got some of them on your screen here, don't you? So I think it's important to choose what you think you want to start with. It doesn't mean that you have to do that for the rest of your career, but it's a good starting point.
Absolutely. And then the other question that we've got is around the ACA exams. So would you complete all of the ACA exams in the apprenticeship and become fully qualified? How does that work? Danny, you're nodding your head, so maybe you want to answer that.
Yeah, no probs. Yeah, so essentially I'm studying for the ACA qualification. There's 15 exams in total over 3 levels. Your first 6 are your certificate level exams. The next 6 are your professional level exams, and the last 3 are your advanced level exams. And yeah, you're correct in thinking that you do sit all of those as part of the apprenticeship programme. The difference between the degree and the school leaver apprenticeship, as we've mentioned, is that one is over 4 years if you're a school leaver, and one is over 3 years if you're coming from university. But yeah, you sit all of the exams as part of your apprenticeship programme, and they are all fully funded by BDO as well. So you don't have to sort of pay for your exam fees or anything like that. In terms of support for the exams going through them, you have sort of, so we're partnered with a college in London that provide the training. They'll provide all of the resources you'll need. They'll provide your notebooks, pass cards for revision, question banks, virtual sort of workbooks to work through. So you get sort of all of the materials you need to pass the exams from our college provider. They also do, so initially when you're booked on to sit the exam, you'll have sort of a 1 to 2 week college course where you'll be in college with a tutor. For most of the exams, that is, some of them are set out a bit differently. But yeah, generally speaking, you're in place in a college for 1 to 2 weeks with a tutor, just to prepare you for the exam. And then you're also allocated a number of days study leave just before the exam sit in, just to prepare yourself even more. So I know due to COVID, sort of some people are sitting exams remotely, some people are sitting them in centre. So that all varies currently. But yeah, I believe sort of it's going to be going back to centre-based exams full time soon. So yeah, that's sort of how the exams work. Quick run through anyway. So yeah.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, there's been some really good information there. Like I said before, the opportunities that BDO have are on our website. Have a look at them. Remember to look at, like Igor just said a few seconds ago, what is it that interests you? Go and have a look at those. Some of you that are on this session will have already applied. Now get preparing, listen to the advice that has been given to you, and make sure that you're ready for those different processes. And you can come to my sessions on a Wednesday, 4:30 to 5:30, if you want any help or questions. And with that, there's different roles available. Igor, when you look at the roles that you have, they have an end date on them, but that's not necessarily the specific end date, is it? How does that work?
So we recruit on a first come, first serve basis. So we are currently recruiting for a September intake. And as soon as we have enough applications, we close. So the sooner you get your applications in, the better. Obviously, choose the one you want and make sure you're choosing the right one for you. But as soon as you know, don't wait around, get your application in. Same
just sort of chip in there, Igor, and just remind everybody you can only apply to one role. So that's just a really important point, because we see it all the time, but you can only apply to one role. And if you apply for a second, that will be sort of a duplicate application and you'll be sort of auto withdrawn. So really make sure you've done your research, you know which role you want to apply to before you apply.
And just sort of before we sort of finish off, Max, as well, if you are in year 11 or year 12 looking at the Explore programme, you don't have to do the assessment centre. It's just an easy way to sort of get some extra hints and tips during that week with us.
And that's available on our website as well. So that's fantastic. Brilliant. We've had lots of great questions tonight. Lots of very good advice. Keep doing the research. Keep having a look. And I want to say thank you to Daniel Morgan for coming along as well, because it's really important that students get to hear from people who are on the programmes themselves. And thank you for answering those questions and sharing that information. And also to Jade and Eagle as well for putting the evening together, and for sharing those tips as well about applying and how to go through and navigate the assessment centres, the interviews and the video interviews. Been really, really useful. If there are any other questions, you can email them in to me and we can help get the information to you. Remember that this has been recorded as well. And if there's people that you know that should have seen this that haven't been here tonight, remind them that it will go on the video library and they can use it to prepare for when they start to do their applications or go through the processes as well. So to everyone, thank you so much for this evening. Really, really enjoyed it. It's been a really valuable session, and thank you for all of your time. And I hope everybody has a good evening.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good luck as well.
Thank you very
Good
much.
luck, everyone.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.